All right. I am super excited to be here today with the first Dare to Be Vital with Dr. Allan Mishra episode with Captain Tom Chaby. And we're going to talk a little bit today about how to survive the corona crisis. So Captain Chaby, first of all, I want to thank you for your service, but I also would love for you to give us a little bit of your background, your history with the Navy SEALs, and what you're doing now. And then if you can sort of expound upon a few things that you're doing to stay vital during this challenging time.
Fantastic. Quick background on me. Grew up on the East Coast, North New Jersey. Was an athlete my entire life. At the end of my collegiate career, I lamented and missed being part of a team. That drove me into the Navy. I was blessed to discover the SEAL community, which was a perfect fit for me. Went through training. I'd love to say I thrived. I did well, probably middle of the road. Difficult training, we all know about that, but I loved it. I loved the challenge of it all. Spent 26 years in the SEALs, but while I was there, I had the privilege to lead men in combat, Afghanistan, Iraq, spent time in 73 countries around the world, lived in South America for a chunk of time. The end of my career could be some of the most rewarding pieces of it. I led an effort called Preservation of the Force and Family, which was full spectrum resilience, looking at the 4 domains that you and I both share and look at every day. And that'd be the physical, psychological, spiritual, and the social piece as well. That'd be the family.
Yeah, it'd really be interesting to hear maybe just your immediate response to the last week or two, as we here in the United States have really been experiencing social isolation, a lot of uncertainty in terms of how long this corona crisis will last, and what we can think about leaning into trying to help each other as we're in this challenging time.
Yeah, the social isolation piece is interesting, and I find myself reflecting, thinking I was a pure extrovert, and I'm learning that perhaps I'm not. I don't mind this isolation. I'm with my family. I have a wife and 2 wonderful young men, 11 and 10. So I'm getting to spend a lot of time throwing baseballs at them, et cetera. But other than the 4 of us, we're isolated, and we've chosen to do that for obvious reasons. We have food. We're not eating out anymore. We're cooking all our own food and trying to stay healthy, but getting after work. And if I can tell you a quick story from 19 years ago, it's a day we can all remember.
Yeah.
A day none of us will ever forget. And I was in a SCIF, which is a secure facility in the Colombian Pentagon, essentially, called El Can. And I was just going about my daily business down there. And I was embedded with their special operations units and working counter-drug operations predominantly. And Admiral Moreno came into the SCIF, and he had tears in his eyes. And I wasn't quite sure what was going on as he apologized to me for a very grateful nation, Colombia that being. And he was apologizing for what had happened to our country. And that's how I learned about the planes flying into the towers.
On 9/11.
And I grew up on the other side of the Hudson River in North New Jersey, Bergen County, and I would look at the tops of those 2 buildings every day. I got recalled immediately from Columbia. I had to come back up to Virginia. I finally got a flight into LaGuardia, commercial flight. I was one of about 6 or 7 people on that flight. And then a Navy flight was able to get me from LaGuardia down to Virginia Beach, flew into Norfolk. And as we were leaving LaGuardia, we went over the Hudson River, and the pilot flew down the Hudson River and tilted the plane to the left so we could see the remains of the building, the smoking remains.
And this was a day or 2 after 9/11?
It was, and it was surreal. But what I remember most was feeling guilty. And I felt guilty because I knew what I trained for at that point had been 16 years or so. I had trained to be a Navy SEAL, and predominantly what we had done to that point, with the exception of Desert Shield and Desert Storm, had been simulated. None of it had been real. And we knew that was all going to change. And I'm not going to say I was overjoyed. I wasn't, but I knew the challenge ahead of me was really going to be rewarding. I was going to be what I value most, relevant.
Yeah.
And I really valued that relevance. I didn't know that then, but as I reflect now, I do know that. And I felt guilty for feeling that way. And I feel that same guilt right now. These challenges, and I think we could clearly call this adversity.
Yeah.
What's going on with COVID-19, what happened in 9/11 are two really dramatic examples of adversity. But for me and the upbringing that I received from the SEAL community, we take adversity and make it our competitive advantage. We look at it as an opportunity to do something great, an opportunity to take advantage of a unknowing enemy, for example, an opportunity to look at things differently through a fresh optic. And that's what I'm doing right now. In my current business, I consult. And I work with the University of Michigan football. I work with a number of other corporate entities across the country. And I have been wanting to expand my delivery modalities into the virtual realm. And I've been really slow to do that. But here we are today on Zoom, and I'm excited about that. Interestingly enough, an hour after our talk, I have another Zoom talk, and then I have two more scheduled for tomorrow. And I've never done Zoom in my life until this very moment.
Well, I want to thank you, because this is I was trying to figure out how to be relevant myself. Just yesterday, I was taking a little hike, and a hike around the Dish, which is above Stanford in the Silicon Valley here in the Bay Area. And we're presently on a shelter-in-place order, so we can go outside and do a little hiking, but we're not supposed to be doing too much. And as I was walking around the Dish, I came up with the idea of trying to share some of the brilliant people in my network with the rest of the world and what they're doing to stay vital. And you were absolutely the top of the list, and I really appreciate you being the very first one to do this. But I would like to be maybe specific in those four categories, and just whatever comes off the top of your head or maybe what you're doing or your family is doing to stay physically, mentally, socially, and spiritually vital. Just specific actionable things that people might think about that we collectively hopefully can inspire people to try to do during this time. Because I agree with you, we are in a very difficult time for a lot of people. But there's also significant opportunities to change ourselves, change our country, and change the world to be productive during this time of either isolation or difficulty.
Fantastic. Starting with the physical, through my whole life, I've been a gym rat. I love working out. It's just something I enjoy. And my wife made it clear a couple of days ago, the gym would, from that point forward, be off limits due to the current situation. And we had a little bit of a fight about that till I realized how correct she was.
As wives usually are.
Absolutely. And I had to look for alternatives. So here I was yesterday lamenting my lack of permission to go to the gym. So I got on my bicycle and I went for an hour bicycle ride out in the sun. And it was rewarding. I have not done that in over a year, and to do that then was great. Then I got back and I did a little mini workout with my two boys. And I'm just trying to do different things physically, and it's kind of fun, getting creative, but mostly being outside, something that I did not do as much as I probably should have. And I know how healthy it is for you.
By the way, there's some evidence to suggest in the 1918 pandemic that those patients, they had to construct hospitals basically in tents outside, and they retrospectively looked at the people who were cared for in the tents versus inside hospitals, and the people in the tents actually did better, and they came up with this sort of airborne protective factor that they couldn't define that was outside. Now, whether or not that's actually something in the air or there's just more airflow or maybe a little UV light that's helping kill off the virus, I think it's one of those things that the media really hasn't talked enough about, is to just get outside, take your dog for a walk, take a bike ride like you did. That's a massively important thing to consider if you have that opportunity.
Fantastic. Well, I enjoyed it. It was also fun. And I clearly agree with that. I can feel it. I feel better today than I did yesterday.
You feel more vital.
Shifting to the psychological domain, I'm just trying to stay intellectually active. And I appreciated your call and this opportunity to get to speak on your podcast. Would we call this? Or
I don't know what we're going to call it. We're going to call it maybe a Zoom cast. I don't know what this is just yet, but this is episode 1 of Dare to Be Vital with Allan Mishra. So Tom Chaby, thank you for being on it.
I feel like it's Sunday night and I'm sitting down to watch the news with Allan Mishra, Dr.
Well,
Allan.
you and I doing this right now, Tom, and maybe a disclaimer for the audience out there is we've known each other for several years, and it's just been an awesome opportunity to get to know a new good friend after a certain age. It's hard to do that in life. But I am really blessed to call Captain Tom Chaby one of my best friends.
Dittos, as they say out there in the radio world on certain stations that we won't refer to for political reasons here.
So doing what we're doing, I think, is important. And if for those people out there who aren't able to connect in person, Zoom or other platforms, Google Hangouts or WebEx or other things can help people stay visually connected is very useful.
Yeah, fantastic. Agree. And, the amazing part to that is I'm watching my 2 boys sitting in the back rooms going to class from 9 a.m. this morning until 3 p.m. this afternoon. They have a full schedule. I sat in and listened for about 15 minutes, off screen, obviously.
Did you learn anything?
It was organized. They were engaging each other. It was impressive. I kind of moonwalked out of the room after I saw how I was unneeded, and they were off to the races to continue their growth in academia. And I liked it.
Is there any other things? I think one of the things I think most about with Navy SEALs or Green Berets or anybody in the military is their mental resilience. And we are right now in a time where that is crucial. I think we're at a very uncertain time. And I'm trying to right now how to figure out how to metabolize uncertainty, because there seems to be a tsunami of uncertainty. So who better to ask than a Navy SEAL captain how to figure out how to metabolize or deal with some of this significant uncertainty? Any suggestions for us?
Yeah, for me, I look at times like this. I truly look at them as an opportunity to grow. I want to own these opportunities. And what do I mean by that? I mean, here we are. We have a choice. We can either be afraid, be concerned, and there's nothing wrong with either of those 2 responses, but how it manifests itself in our daily lives is key. And in the world I came from, we didn't have the luxury to be afraid. We just couldn't be afraid. You don't have a choice. You're going to be on the battlefield, and things are going to happen regardless if you're ready to go or not. So being afraid will obviously reduce your ability to perform at the highest levels. At the end of the day, it's a choice. Let me repeat that. It's a choice. It's a choice how you respond. And it's maybe easy for me to say, hey, this is an opportunity to embrace, to grow, to make this my competitive advantage, because I've been through more adversity than the average bear. And that's true. That was what I did for 26 years, was put myself through challenges. And I function well only when there are challenges, whether it be lack of information, time limitations, resource limitations. The unknown is a tough one. And that's what we're dealing with right now. And I try to deal with what I do know.
Yeah.
And I do know what my family needs to do. But we're just doing that. We're embracing it and trying to live our lives as vitally as we can, as you would say.
So quick question, and then I'll finish up with the spiritual part of it, but maybe it's just a little bit of a greedy question, and obviously don't tell us anything we aren't. allowed to know, but was there ever an engagement or a battle where you just didn't know when it was going to end, and you didn't know how it was going to end? And I think, I don't want to compare the viral outbreak to war, but in some senses, some of us who've never experienced combat feel like we might be in a war with an unknown, unseen enemy. And do any of your previous experiences help us figure out maybe when you were at the absolute abyss of trying to figure out, is this actually going to end, and is it going to end well? How did you, and how importantly, how did you keep your men focused on knowing that there's very likely going to be a good outcome, at least to some extent? I don't want to be, unnecessarily optimistic, but I mean, that's a little bit of my nature, but I'm just trying to figure out is how can we stay optimistic in this time where it doesn't seem to be possible?
That's a great question. And most people are disappointed to hear my answer because the real world missions and challenges I've been part of, as daunting as they were, it was training where I was really put to the test.
Okay.
There was nothing that I experienced on the battlefields around the world that matched what they put us through training wise. And what I learned through all that training, and we often had no idea when things would end. We often had no idea when they would begin. I mean, there were times I would, on my way to work, stop at Starbucks, go grab a caramel macchiato, and stroll into my office thinking it was going to be another day like yesterday. And guess what? Pack your stuff. We're leaving. Maybe for a training exercise. And we're leaving maybe not for 2 days, maybe for 2 weeks. And we have no idea where we're going, what we're doing, what we're going to be exposed to. And what I learned through all that is worrying about outcomes is the downfall of the mindset of people that run into problems or challenges like this. It's the same in sports. It's the same in the corporate world. When you focus on the process, when you focus on those things you need to do, like right now, what do we need to do? We need to socially isolate, right? We were talking about that before. We need to make sure we have all the necessities for our family. I think we're going to be okay in that regard. But, we stocked up on the toilet paper. I'm kidding on that, but half kidding on that. The reality is we need to be ready.
Yeah.
But it's a process. What are we going to do every day? Let's get your sleep, because sleep now is going to be more important than normal. Maybe get out in the sun for the reasons you mentioned before from the 1918 pandemic challenge then. And just do the things we know we need to do. Stay away from grandma and grandpa or our parents if you're our age.
Right.
And just day after day, and realize, hey, this could go for 2 weeks, 2 months, 8 months. We have no idea. And it really doesn't matter. If you set an expectation on it, a time expectation, you're setting yourself up for problems.
Yeah, that's really good advice. It's just to try and lean into the process of taking good care of yourself, being smart about the choices you make. And I think you touched on sleep, and that's one area where we might actually have a little more time to do that. And that's one of those things that if you look at how your immune system responds, you do have a better chance of fighting off the virus, preventing it from taking hold if you get better sleep. So that's one of my personal suggestions for people is to, try to emphasize how can you sleep better. And obviously there's anxiety going on right now, but the couple things that I typically recommend are to exercise and then create an environment where you can have a cool, quiet, and dark environment. Maybe Captain Chaby, we can finish with any spiritual suggestions, and then I want to thank you for your time and really appreciate you coming forth at the very first chance to do this. You're first in, like most Navy SEALs. You're in the special ops version of this, so really appreciate you being with us today.
Yeah, the spiritual domain is maybe socially a little bit sensitive because different people manifest their spirituality in different ways. I'm a Christian. I'm a guy who prays. We've been praying as a family. We're very blessed We have food. We have good water. It's not the middle of winter where we're dealing with snow. Not that I deal with much snow down here in Tampa, Florida. But, there are a lot of good things to be grateful for right now. So we try to be grateful. And I think just the act of being grateful in and of itself is spiritually nourishing. And I also would encourage, reach out to those who need help. Yes. I've got a circle of friends and family, and some of them may need help, may need me to go grab them a gallon of milk because they don't want to go expose themselves. And man, doing that makes me feel good. It makes me feel, dare I say, relevant and vital at the same time. It's the truth, because I really do feel that way.
Awesome. Captain Chaby, I can't think of a better way to kick this off. I thank you very much for your time, and do yourself a favor and the rest of us, stay safe, stay vital, stay healthy, and be well. I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Okay. Take care, Allan.
Bye now.